All right. So they're saying it's showtime. They're saying it's time to go. Time to do this thing. I hope some people are out there. Welcome. Welcome to the Bunker Nation Show. My name is Michael Bunker. I'm going to be your host for the evening. In case you haven't seen it before, we got this deal right here. See? It's professional. Doesn't get any better than that. Hello, Gary. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Miami. Hello, Andrews, Texas. Everybody else, come on in here. Hit the like button and type in the comment section. Wherever you're watching from, just type in where you are. It'll show up eventually over in my comment section, and we can have a little chat. So everything's going pretty good. Those of you who are new, either new in live or new like in the future, you're future new people because you're watching this at some point after it was live recorded. My name is Michael Bunker, and I am I don't even know what I am. Sometimes I don't know. Hello, Pat. I'm kind of a commentator. I'm a writer. I write books. Do that for a living. And then I also am like an expert in a lot of things, like how to make stuff, how to do stuff, how to cook stuff, how to kill stuff, how to butcher stuff, how to survive off grid. Hello, Mechanicsville, Virginia. All right. Well, good to see you guys here. I've been gone a couple of days. The first day was because it was just too hot. It's over 100 degrees. My laptop wouldn't run. That's what happens when it gets too hot. So a lot of stuff's been going on. And then, what day is today anyway? Wednesday? Monday night or something. Yeah, Monday, I shot down to Fredericksburg, Texas, one of my favorite places in the world, 2 hours south of here. And I hung out with Kevin Tomlinson, my friend. A lot of you guys may know Kevin. You might have seen, I've been interviewed on his show, a half dozen times. And so we sat down. No one's talking to you, John. Shut up, go drown in the fire. So we sat down at Auslander, which is one of my favorite places. It's like the southern Michael Bunker base camp. And so when I go to Fredericksburg, I go right to the Auslander. I park and I set up camp and I hang out there, which was great. Got to hang around with Kevin, who's a really good friend. Hey, Bob, I just saw you there. Good to see you. Glad to be home. And so speaking of Bob, I was leaving. So I've been going to Fredericksburg since 92, maybe even earlier. But my wife went down there wife and I went down there in 92 for our honeymoon. And so, I know Fredericksburg pretty well. We're down there several times a year, sometimes every month. Sometimes it goes 3 or 4 months we don't go down there. So I park in the back. I know how to do things. I park in the back behind Auslander, parked back there and had a good time with Kevin. We talked and laughed and had a good time, and really, really something I needed, after coming off the 30-day challenge and then just haven't had a whole lot of time to sit and fellowship with people. So, other than you, and I don't get to see your beautiful faces. So, and so we sat out and talked, and then I was heading back. And as I pulled out, right there, like a block away, I saw the Tobacco House cigar bar / store. I was fired up. So I pulled over real quick, ran in there, met Bob, and hit it off with Bob real well. We had a lot of good conversations, good talks, talked about a lot of good stuff. And if you guys are ever in Fredericksburg, Texas, go to the Tobacco House, TABAK. It's cool. It's a cool place. It is now my southern base camp. All right. So I hope everybody, like I said, I hope you're doing okay. A lot of stuff going on. I didn't get a bunch of time to catch up with what's going on in the news because it's all bad. I got to go to HEB, which to us is like, that's what I need in my life. If they had an HEB in Brownwood, I would probably never go anywhere. But so one of our excuses for going to Fredericksburg is to go to HEB. Now, closest HEB is in Abilene, but I know just not a big Abilene fan. I go there to watch a movie or something, but we like to go to Fredericksburg. And so I went into HEB. They were stocked with everything. Prices weren't too bad. Things looked good. looks like it's almost like normally. What did I eat at Auslander? I had a appetizer plate that was called the German plate, I think. And it was basically a sausage about that long, sauerkraut, and then it had a bunch of bread and cheese. And I ate the cheese off the bread, but I didn't eat the bread. A bunch of pumpernickel. I love pumpernickel, but I just didn't eat a bunch of bread. Hello, Susan. So yeah, it was great. Auslander's got great food. I highly recommend it. It's my favorite place to go. That and the Friedhelm's Bavarian. Yeah, meat prices are looking all right. I'm not at all deceived into thinking that things are going back to normal. We're seeing a vestige of normal. Hey, Greg, thanks. Appreciate it. Hey, you guys, come on in here. Glad to see you. Hit the like button. If you're watching on YouTube's, do a subscribe thing. Hey, I got a little toy. Watch this. I got a little toy I can put on there like this. Watch this. Subscribe. Also, you should all gently caress the like button. So we got all that going on. They're just cool toys. All right, so I got to talk with Bob. We had a good conversation driving back today. I got to listen to a little bit of the news. It's not good out there. And so I wanted to give you guys a history lesson. Who wants a history lesson? I always ask because I never know if anybody wants a history lesson. And everybody knows that history is kind of my thing. It's my shtick, particularly focused on Russian history. But I know world history. I know American history. 2 times in world history that are remarkably similar to the time that we're in right now. And so I wanted to talk about those. One was right prior to the Russian Revolution. I held up this book, one of the earlier shows, and I recommend it if you can get it. Solzhenitsyn book called Lenin in Zurich. And one of the things that's really remarkable about this book is it shows the cafe. I'm going to call it the cafe society, not in the traditional sense, but what we call, like today is social media terrorism, where everybody has to think the same thing and everybody has to believe the same thing. And if you don't, it used to be you actually had to say the same things, but now if you don't say what somebody says, you have to say you're in trouble. You know, if you don't do the right thing, if you don't black out your Instagram or doing something like that, then you're in trouble, regardless of what you personally think about that, or if you were gone that day or whatever, you can get yourself in some trouble. And so this is very similar, eerily similar to right before the Russian Revolution. And so there was a cafe society. They didn't have social media, of course. Their social media was people met in groups, sometimes large groups. In St. Petersburg and in Moscow, the people would meet in the union halls. They would meet in the veterans clubs, and there was always a burning excitement about what somebody was going to say. People were sitting there, and it was just like the Apostle Paul said that the Athenians would, and they were always wanting to hear a new thing, and you couldn't get up there and say something boring. You had to say something that was titillating, something that rubbed the ears, something that was something new, right? And so it got to the point, and Lenin was in the cafes in Zurich because he was outcast. He was kicked out of Russia, and so they would go to and there's a couple of movies that portray this. They would go into these cafes or these meeting halls or these veterans halls, and people would sit back and they would wait. Hello, Frank from Duck's Head Farm. So too many jokes. All right. So somebody had to stand up and say something new, and it always had to be more extreme than the last person. And so what would happen is the whole group was pushed to the farthest extreme. Reasonability got you canceled, got you ignored. Being reasonable would get you ignored. You had to get up there and say something even more crazy. And that's what our left and our right do today, pardon me, in politics. It's like nobody's paying attention because it's 24 hours screaming. 24 hours screaming at each other. So to get anybody's attention, you got to go up there and you got to suggest something even crazier. You got to say something like, I know what we should do. Let's just, I don't know, let's just get rid of the police. You know, I know that guy was saying, maybe we stop them from doing stuff like murdering people. Maybe we get them not to like death choke people who are already subdued. Maybe we get them to stop that. And then the next person was like, wait, no. No, what we need to burn their precincts down and run them out. And the next guy, let's take the money. Let's take the money from them and let's give it to something else worthless. And so it's just like the next person that stands up there has got to say something crazier than that, right? And this is not new. This happens on the left and the right. This is kind of like the hallmark of modern politics. So that was Russia. So they had this cafe society, and there were people that just hopped, and the thing then was printing. Printing made you your voice heard. If you could print out 5,000 pamphlets, St. Petersburg and Moscow were filled with pamphlets every day. And there was a new thing every day, and somebody was all night long printing pamphlets, and the pamphlets said, Cossack lives matter, or the pamphlet said, let's just all kill the Tsar. Let's kill his whole family. Let's find this mad monk and let's shoot him and poison him and drown him, and then dig him up and then shoot him and poison him and drown him again. And so and it was all day, every day, and everybody got up because they didn't know what had happened. If you hadn't been in the cafe, if you hadn't been in the VFW, if you hadn't been down at the bar, if you hadn't been at the Union House and you didn't know what was going on, you were behind. You walked out on the street and people were chanting the next thing, and the next thing you didn't know. Maybe you got on the wrong side of history. All right? Before that, in France, they had started off with this, and it was called Salon Society. The salons of France, of Paris, were wealthy people's large suite apartments that were set up for large groups of people to sit around and gossip. And the salons were famous. And go read a book called A Tale of Two Cities. And so they would sit there, and then and when the guillotine started going, and it was going day and night, that was what was going on. They were printing out pamphlets and people were handing out books. Did you read the newest thing? Have you heard what so and so said? Have you heard this? Have you heard that? And if you didn't know, maybe somebody points the finger at you, because this group of people seized power and they're chopping off heads, and then this clique and took over, and then they were doing it, and then the next people, and then the lady that was pointing fingers at people and getting their heads chopped off, now she's going up there and getting her head chopped off. Things became a big snake eating its own tail. This is history, and it's actually well-known history. Not by most people, but by anybody who's like, I don't know, read books. And it was the printing, it was the ideas, it was the yelling and the shouting and the getting the new thing out there, and everybody who's not with us is against us, and that group of people is evil, and this group of people is bad, and this group of, and it swirled around. It became this very poisonous whirlpool, a tsunami of stupid that was swirling around and just sucked people into its wake. And you were like on the farm, eating a banana, or eating an apple, whatever, and you had slept in the hayloft for 2 days because you maybe had a few too many beers and you weren't paying attention. And you come stumbling into town and they were like, you're wearing a white t-shirt. We have identified white t-shirt with the anti-revolutionaries. So we see that you've declared your position by not declaring it. To the guillotine with you. And that's the way it worked. In Russia, it was crazy. It was crazy. And they were tearing down statues, and they would get the crowd in a uproar, and people would run over here and tear this thing down, and they broke into the palace and tore stuff up, and some people had no. If you were over 50, you weren't running down there to the VFW. You weren't running down there to hear the speeches every day. You didn't know what was going on, and you got behind. Right? Small, tiny groups with absurd and extreme positions were able to manipulate huge populations because everybody was afraid. Everybody was afraid to say anything. Hello, Scott. People were afraid to talk. People were afraid to write books. People were afraid to say their opinions. People were afraid to not say their opinions. And then what we ended up with, in both cases, was a whole lot of dead people. It took a long time before some semblance of sanity crept back in. There were a lot of corpses in the ground, on the ground, rotting in Russia, which became the Soviet Union shortly after that. There's a great book. I've got it over there. It's called "Gently Flows the Don," the D-O-N, the Don River. And in that book, basically focuses on all these people that came from this one little town, Vostok or something like that. And it shows kind of what their lives were like and how everybody did their military. They were mainly Cossacks, and they all did their military time, and how they would bring in their crops, and then they had to go spend so many months doing their military time and all that, and how they really they weren't political. They didn't have political thoughts. They were just doing their time. They were getting their crops in. They were talking about marriage, all these type of things. And then when the revolution started, nobody knew what side to be on. All of them sounded a little crazy. But at some point, they force you to declare yourself. So this one guy goes and joins this general's army, maybe with the whites, and this guy goes and joins this general's army with the reds. And the guy who's with the whites, they're coming into this town or the large city, and they come across a bunch of reds who had been run out of the town. And they take them and they line them up and they get them to dig their own graves, and they shoot them. They're in the graves, and they're sitting there shoveling, burying these bodies. And one of them was a guy from his own village who months before, they were the same. They didn't even have different opinions. They didn't even know what their opinions were. And not a few chapters later, the reds are getting run out of town, or the whites. I don't remember which one I started with. And they're going right by the place where they shot the other group, and they get captured, and they're digging holes right next to where he shot his friend, and they get shot and put in the holes. And all the time, these were people that they were from the same village. They didn't even know anything about the rights of man. They didn't know anything about, the bourgeoisie. Thank you, Nancy, for your wonderful super chat. It has been like 3-4 days of shows since I've had a super chat, and I appreciate it because it's been pretty thin. Thank you, Nancy, very much. Super chats are always appreciated because that's how we pay for all of this stuff. You get free history lessons. You get free commentary. You get talking about what's going on in the world. So what's the point? Yeah, Tolstoy was he was put into quite often they were put into house arrest, and it was pretty it was pretty drastic in some cases, but he was a prince, from a royal family. The word prince in Russian is not the same as prince in areas where, like England, where they have hereditary title. So you could become a prince in Russia. The czar could declare could give you a princedom. You didn't have to be related to the family. The Tolstoy family he was a count, and although he rejected his family's politics and all that kind of stuff, but he was he was put on house arrest. Solzhenitsyn was sent to the Gulag, and Pushkin was arrested and put on house arrest. You can't think of very many Russian authors who were not at some point arrested for what they think or for what they wrote or for not writing the same things. And so here's the thing, as a historian, there's no difference. The words are the same. You can see it if you read the books. You can see how people. I started hearing this the other day. If people aren't being vocal about this, then that shows that they are complicit. Silence is complicity. That's a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous place. It's not leading to a dangerous place. It is a dangerous place. Because it first of all, it solidifies the whole us versus them, that there's some kind of bifurcation of society between super dark evil and super good, and somehow everybody's on one side or the other. Everybody has to declare themselves. Everybody has to join a camp, and if you haven't joined a camp, then you obviously are complicit. So we're going to throw you in the other camp. And you just see the leaders fall, and you see one after another famous people that are on reality shows. You see authors, one after another, they either said the wrong thing, or they didn't say the right thing, or they didn't say anything. And pretty soon, everybody is locked into this impenetrable bubble of same think. No, there's no freedom. There's no thought freedom where an idea could. Gary, great. You don't have to tell me when you're leaving. I appreciate you coming in, but you don't have to tell me. I feel better when I don't know when you leave. It's always like 3 minutes into the show. You're like, I gotta go. Just watch it later. You don't have to tell me. So you take care, man. I appreciate it. I was in the middle of something, but thank you. This is a dangerous, dangerous place. And once they start with this, if you don't bow, if you don't kneel, if you don't black out your Instagram, if you don't say the right words, if you don't say listening and learning, if these words, if the same thing from the propaganda wonks that they're writing every day, they're printing every day, that they're handing out the pamphlets every day, and perhaps you look at life and you don't see things as starkly as they do. Perhaps you see things nuanced, like real life. Perhaps you think if you throw yourself into this camp because of this one thing that you perhaps agree with, you're going to have all that other garbage dumped on you. Perhaps you say Black Lives Matter, and they do, and it's important to you, but then you also realize there's an organization called that has some pretty extreme socialistic, communistic views that you don't want to be attached to you, that have nothing to do with the color of anybody's skin. Perhaps you support people that are saying certain things. This is very akin to a lot of theological purification stuff that went on during the Inquisition. There's a story of from Solzhenitsyn where a apparatchik, some high up government official, had made a speech. Maybe it was Stalin. I think it was Stalin who made a speech, And everybody was clapping, and everybody was looking around because nobody wanted to be the first person to stop clapping. And the clapping was boisterous, and then it got quieter, and everybody looked around. Then it would get boisterous again. Everybody looked around, and one guy was like, "Screw it, I'm done clapping." And they arrested him. And as he was being taken to prison, the Lubyanka, the policeman told him, "Don't ever be the first person to stop applauding." Where does that lead us? How much applause is enough? How much kneeling is enough? How much bowing is enough? How much of my vernacular, of my speech has to be regulated by political apparatchiks and middle management who are sitting there nothing but putting out ideas and thoughts, and everyone has to be crazier than the day before? Something to think about, because they can guilt you. They work on you the other 23 hours a day when Michael Bunker's not talking in your ear. The other 23 hours a day, you're reading stuff when they're saying, "Oh, this CEO didn't say this," and "Is Roger Goodell going to take a knee? Is I don't even know, a guy who owns Jerry Jones going to say the right things, or we're going to cancel him and make him sell his team and cancel the Cowboys. We're going to cancel America. We're going to cancel it." And so it brings us to something. And there's a question of the day. How long can a country as large as America, where this stuff is going on, which cannot be undone, how long can it remain indivisible? Or is there a hard divorce coming? I've said before, you get to a point where there's things you can't unsay. That's personal relationships. I'm guilty of being very firm and sometimes too stalwart in my opinions. And you get to a place where you say something or you do something and you can't take it back. You can't unclimb that rope. And I think that's where we are. I think that's where we are right now. I think there's things that are being said. I mentioned the other day that when politicians stop attacking their opponents and start attacking large segments of the population and labeling them a large segment. I'm not talking about groups like the media or groups like, whatever. I'm talking about saying 50% of the population are fascist or Hitler or communist or whatever. Once we start down that road, you get labeled an enemy. The next step, which we're beginning to see, is the repercussions against enemies. It starts off with simple things: loss of your job, loss of your social contacts, shaming, and then it goes on. And then there's a benefit. And by a benefit, I mean there's a reward to people to go after their enemies. So perhaps you and I disagree on something minor, but something I said really rubbed you the wrong way. Boy, there's enough people out there who don't like me. So they start a whisper campaign, or they decide they're going to do a public outing, a public canceling. We're going to go back through 20 years of public statements, 9 years of him being on YouTube, and we're going to find something. And that's it. They come get you. And then the next step is it's no longer shame and loss of your job, loss of your ability to make money. Next, they come and they put you in a vehicle. But it won't be the police because they're defunding them. It's going to have to be somebody else, like a private Antifa van. Hava says, when I lived in Tennessee, I was advised to not tell anyone that I adopted a black child because I would be rejected by parents. Yeah, there's always something. And the people that begin to bend to that, and like I said, it could be something you agree with. We could make up a scenario so that we don't offend anybody. You could make up a scenario and say, okay, tomorrow, because you never know. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. You never know what tomorrow's thing is going to be. They're printing all night. And tomorrow they're going to say white people playing basketball in front of their house is some form of something, or not saying this one word means that you hate some group or something like that, and you don't know what it is, and all of a sudden you're in that category. And then start rounding folks up, or they just leave a mark on your house and it gets burned down. Perhaps you agreed with the point, you just disagreed with the mob mentality. That happens a lot with me. I often agree with some points. I disagree with this stupid groupthink thought crime, where if you don't go down there and put your pinch of incense on the altar to Caesar, you must be with them. Anyways, what's the difference between canceling and putting money where it matters? I don't really get the question. Canceling is when they actually actively campaign for you to be fired, disassociated with people, and to cut off your ability to work and make money. Somebody just not buying your product is not canceling. This is an effort to ruin and destroy you. If I sit there and go, I'm not going to buy Levi's, or I'm not going to do, I'm not going to, I don't know. I don't have any real boycotts. There's things I don't like. I'm not going to go to Whataburger because of their anti-gun stance. That's my own opinion. If I try to get those people that work there fired, if I try to get them disassociated from their gym, if I try to ruin their lives, that's canceling, and it's not even close to the same thing. Am I saying that there's no way to fix this? I'm saying that some of the attitudes and some of the positions are so extreme, it is very unlikely, nigh unto impossible, to undo that. It's nigh unto impossible, because you basically would have to reverse this entire trend. And there are huge areas of the country that believe one way, and there's huge areas of the country that believe another way. And for 50 or 100 years, they found a way to work together. They found a way to deal with things. It used to be one thing to say those people are dumb. Those people are, oh gosh, you got to deal with those people. We've gone beyond that now. We're actually advocating violence. We're actually saying these people ought not to be able to work. They ought not to be able to earn a living. They ought not to be able to feed their children. And I have been vocally against it on both sides. And everybody who knows me knows that. I was against it when it was James Gunn, and I was against it when it was Roseanne, and I was against it when it was whoever. John, don't ask me questions. I'm asking you guys questions. I'm saying what I think, and then you guys tell me. The question was for you guys. Do you think we're heading to dissolution? I've already said what I think. I don't think that some of the things that are being said and done right now are undoable. I don't think we can undo them. That doesn't mean I've taken the next step saying that we're going to have a civil war or whatever. That I'm asking you. What do you think? That's how this conversation works. You don't answer my question with the same question. That's not how it works. Go drown in a fire, John Brenner. No, I like John. John's a good guy. We probably get along better in person. You don't think dissolution is likely? Okay, I mean that's good. I mean, I'm like giving opinions and thoughts, but okay. We told our kids their feelings and opinions matter too much. That's true. I don't think that's wholly causal. I mean, it's part of the thing now. What we've done more than that is we've allowed people to believe that because they have a complete sociopathic mentality and because they have absolutely zero empathy that's real, that destroying another person because their opinions are different than ours is a viable thing. And there are entire groups of people, strata of people, that is their absolute belief. Their absolute belief is they are so righteous and so correct and so absolutely beyond reproach in their opinions that if somebody else disagrees with them, they should be destroyed. That is America 2020. And I don't think you can cohabitate with that. Well, John, when you say at least not yet, then we're both in the same place. If you say you don't think it's going to happen, at least not yet, I didn't say I think it was going to happen now. And I haven't even said that I think it's going to happen. I'm just saying there are things that are being said, there are opinions right now that are becoming solidified into policy that you cannot back out of. You cannot sit there and say, okay, well, we're not going to do that now. You can't label an entire category of Americans who have never done any of the things that the Nazis did as Nazis, and then back out of it later and go, oh, okay, they're not Nazis. I don't know what we get along just fine here is. I think you got your head in the sand, brother. I'm looking out into through this box out into the world. I'm not looking at my neighbor. I don't have a problem with my neighbor. I don't know. I don't even think we're speaking the same language. All right. So that's the thing for today. If you guys have questions or comments, or if you have things you want to talk about, go ahead and type them into the comment section. I am here for you. I am glad to be here for you. I'm drinking a stout that I made with these hands back during the 30-day survival challenge. And it's delicious. Yeah, you're exactly right, Frank. There's not just a rewriting of history, but even if we agree that history is not superlative, that there was good and bad, that there were things that happened that were good and that were bad, but it's history. You know, I look at the Alamo. So, you know, what's happened now is that these people, the same group of people, the same strata of people who believe that they are absolutely above reproach and righteous in their every belief and cannot be in error. When they look into history books, if you look back here, I have just right here, I have about 4 sets of encyclopedias going back to the early 1900s. In the room over there, I've got another 10 sets. One thing I like to do is I like to go back, because what you can do is you can find out what those people thought. One of the things is, back in the day, 1950, 1954, those guys were going door to door selling those encyclopedias. And almost every home in America had one. Almost. And you couldn't put something in the encyclopedia that was just so untrue that everybody knew it. So whether or not it's word for word exactly what happened, it was the general consensus in the world of what had happened at the time. All of that's just being erased. It's just being replaced. Re-examinations, right? So nowadays, if they come to you and they say the War of 1812 happened in 1915, people are like, okay, it's 1984, might as well. We've always been at war with East Asia. Our current situation reminds me of the beginnings of the Nazi regime. Jews were restricted, then forced to wear the yellow band, and then promised better and got into the carts expecting work. Yeah, I try not to go there too fast, just because of the whole everybody's a Nazi thing. But yeah, there's a lot of parallels. I parallel it more closely to Russia between 1914 and 1917. France, I don't know, 1789-ish. But it's an interesting time for sure. And the problem is when you have people, I'm not going to name any names, when you have people who don't know that history, who haven't read those books, who don't know that this is not something new. It's not only not new, it's like, I'm not saying that that this is eerily similar. I'm saying they say the same things. They use the same tactics, right? When those things are happening, and you know a little bit about the history, it's very difficult to come to the conclusion that somehow we're all just going to back out of that because me and my two neighbors next door all think just alike. Everybody in my little bubble says just like me. You're crazy, Bunker. We're not going to have any kind of dissolution. I'm not saying we are. I'm saying it's probably true that you got yourself a bubble. Maybe you don't have anybody that's telling you if you don't do this, you're going to lose your job. They're going to cancel you. You're going to be destroyed. Nancy says, peacefully disagreeing with friends and speaking to moderating my certainty has been helpful. Yeah, that's what I'm all about. I'm all about, hey, let's listen to each other. Let's have a little empathy. I'm not softening my personal opinions. You guys know that. Or what I think is right or what I think is wrong. I'm just saying, if you can't take your opponent's position and win with it, in other words, if you can't debate you from your opponent's position and win, you don't know your position well enough. You need to know everything about that, and you need to have, and that creates empathy. It helps you to get into their mind. Why do they think that? Why do they think the way they think? I don't think, as a whole, disbanding and defunding the police is a good idea. However, a whole lot of the things that they are proposing along those lines, I absolutely agree with. I don't think we should be putting chokeholds on people that are already in custody. I think we need to increase the amount of training, and I think we need to have psychological profiles that remove 50% of these police officers that do not have the moral and the interior character to be in that job. They don't have the ability to be patient and kind and to listen and to think without reacting in anger or exercising undue authority over other people. So I have huge agreements with people on the one side, but at the same time, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't like cities. Pull everybody out of them and burn them down, and I'm fine. But if you're going to have 7.5, 8.5, 10 million people sitting on top of each other like a bunch of chickens pecking dots, you're probably going to need a police force. You probably weren't serfs, but you might have been, Nancy. The serfs were actually freed in 1905. So maybe you were before that. We're all still serfs at some level. Yeah. Certainly, the world has become full of mental serfs. So that's what we do here in the Bunker Nation. We think and thrive. How to think, how to get outside of these logical fallacies and start thinking. All right, y'all, I'm here for you. If you got a question, you got a comment, throw it out there. If not, I got stuff I got to do. And I have been glad to be here because I hadn't been here for a couple of days and I missed you people, most of you. And I didn't tell anybody but John to drown in a fire. See, Empathy. That's the way it goes. All right, I'm here for a couple minutes. If you guys have some questions or comments, hey everybody, what I want to tell you is if you would hit the like button. Also down below here, it's not there yet, but it'll be there about 20 minutes, maybe 10. There's gonna be a whole list of like stuff on Amazon you could buy. If you have to buy anything from Amazon, just go to my list and then click on it, then go there and buy whatever you want. They give me like a couple of ducats, a couple of trinkets, a couple of, I don't know, wampums, and it doesn't cost you any extra. There's also a place down there where you can go and you can partner. Oh, by the way, I meant to tell you all that. I'll get back to the comments here in just a second. So we're still looking for 5 more people who are able to do $10 a month to help pay for the StreamYard thing that you're looking at here and all the good stuff and plus the plugins. I thought we had 6, but one of them turned out to be just a $10 donation. It was not monthly. I don't know if the person thought that they were doing a monthly, but they didn't subscribe monthly. They just did a one-time $10 donation, which is appreciated. And then we got somebody who did a $5 donation. So we now have 4.5 people, and we need 10 total. All right, $10 a month. And it just helps pay for this nonsense going on, so I can pop stuff on there like Welcome to the Bunker Nation show and all this kind of stuff. And when I get people I'm going to interview or talk to, I can get them on here and we can have picture in picture and we can like show you stuff that's on our computers. It'll be cool. All that's going to happen. All right. Too many people in my community have dogs. For decades, police department hires ex-military, and now people are shocked when those tactics are used against them. That's true. They also hire ex-jocks. That's also a problem. Coming from an ex-jock. Large cities have to have police because the people there can no longer think for themselves. That's true. That's true pretty much across the board. Frank says, just like in Russia, the current protest movement is going to be hijacked, just like the brown shirts in Germany. That's true. Antifa type crowd and the white supremacist crowd are being used by the people controlling the movement and would meet a bad end. That's true. Yeah, the thing is never the thing, right? I think, got your monthly for that, Nancy. I think we're set up. I think yours was okay. There was another one, and I think it was intended to be a $10 monthly, and it was only a $10 one time. After you put in the $10 on that page, michaelbunker.com, go to the partners page, click on that, and you go down direct partnership, and you put in underneath. You have to click on it and say you want it to repeat monthly. All right. Hey guys, I got to go. It's starting to be that time. I appreciate you guys being here as always. It's always fun to be here. If you can, donate and support and partnership and all that kind of stuff. Thank you, Nancy, for the super chat, and we appreciate it. Everybody needs to subscribe. If you're watching this on Facebook or one of the other platforms, go to YouTube. YouTube.com/BunkDad, or just type in search engine, type in Michael Bunker. It'll take you right to me, and subscribe. All right. Anyways, I appreciate you guys. I love you, and I'll talk to you again maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day.